Why do people, particularly couples and people in relationships, have major issues, fights, arguments, conflicts? Sometimes it appears for no apparent reason. Sometimes little things escalate into major fights and blowouts and shutdown. And they are totally miffed at this. They're totally clueless of why this is happening. There are two main reasons that I'm thinking about right now. There may be more, but the two reasons I would like to deal with them with in two separate videos. The first one is what I call the relationship homeostasis. And you may be familiar with the word homeostasis from your science high school class, where the body physiologically needs certain conditions in order to function optimally and function normally. And if any of those is thrown off, then the body, it dysregulates the body. For example, if your temperature goes too high, then that's not good. If your temperature drops too low, that's not good either. You can't really function. So even while we're sitting here, wherever you are, in order for you to be comfortable and function well and concentrate on what I'm saying, the temperature of the room needs to be normal, or what we call normal. If it gets too hot, then you get a little irritated, you start taking clothes off, and you're not able to concentrate and function because you feel too hot. If it gets too cool or cold, you put layers on, or you want to turn the heating up. Again, you're not able to function when the temperature is too low. And lots of other things operate similarly in your body. If your blood pressure gets too high, if your blood sugar gets too high, then those are dangerous signals. Now, when you're in a state of any of these normal functions going out of whack, then you could be easily triggered, you won't be able to think clearly, and basically things are going to be topsy. Similarly, there is what I would call, and I mentioned this before, the relationship homeostasis. In order for you to function optimally in your relationship, certain things need to be in balance. Certain needs need to be met, and we call them emotional needs. Emotional needs are to your relationship what physical needs are. If you are not eating properly, or if you are not eating at all, if you're hungry, a hungry man is an angry man. If someone hasn't eaten for a very long time and they're really, really hungry, nothing else matters than the griping in their stomach and the desperate feeling that they need something to recharge and re-energize the system. And you would have heard the term, a hungry man is an angry man. And if you don't know a person is hungry, because sometimes you can't see that, and you try to rationalize with them, you try to solve a conflict with them, it's not going to happen. And in fact, it would go south very quickly, and they may turn on you in ways that will shock you. You wouldn't know what hits you. And what you're not aware of, you're probably thinking that person is a very nasty person, that person is devious, that person is having a go at you. What you don't realize, that is just a symptom of the fact that they are hungry. You can't see the hunger. You are only seeing the symptoms, the irritation and the outbursts of this person. There are other issues that also can trigger a person to be downright irritable, and it is when your emotional needs are not being met. Now, Willard Harley speaks a lot about emotional needs. The human being functions most on emotions. We don't see emotions until they're displayed. We can't see the inner functioning of emotions, but emotions drive us. If you think of the word motion, emotion, the emotion triggers the system to respond and react a certain way. So for example, you may feel a feeling of hunger. The emotion drives you to eat. Let's talk about emotional needs. We have lots of different emotional needs. And like I said, Willard Harley speaks to that very nicely. He gives the concept that you have a bank account, and if when your bank account is full, your emotional bank account is satisfied, then you function normally, you're happy, But when it's withdrawn and there's not enough, man, the mess hits the fan. So there are general emotional needs, like we have a need to be valued, we have a need to be needed, we have a need to be appreciated, we have a need to be approved, we have a need to matter, that we need to matter to the person. So those are general emotional needs that everybody has. Men and women, boys and girls, children, everybody has these emotional needs. And if these emotional needs are not met, we begin to act funny. We may act in ways that are unsociable. We may act in ways and lash out in ways that if these needs are met, we probably would be as nice as pie. And sometimes many people's emotional needs, particularly when they're acting up, are not really met. But interestingly, their behavior is counterproductive. They're acting in ways to get their emotional needs of attention, to check to see if they matter to you, but it's counterproductive because the way they're acting causes you to withdraw even further. When I was teaching long ago, they used to say that the child who behaves the worst is the child that needs the most attention. So there are general emotional needs. We need to be very careful that we're meeting these general emotional needs with our spouse. And there are gender-specific emotional needs. One gender prioritizes a type of emotional needs above another. For example, you may know that men love sex, and when they don't get sex, they become irritable and crabby, and they lash out and they withdraw. So it's an emotional need. Women like affection. Women like to talk. They talk for all of England, all of America. They talk till the cows come home, and they enjoy a good, solid conversation. So it's not that men don't talk. Men do talk, but that is not as much of a priority as it is for women, because women seem to bond. They tend to get their emotional need met as they engage and interact and talk and go back and forth with each other. There is also personal emotional needs is specific to the person. Some people like to have a clean, organized environment. They just can't function in clutter. That's an emotional need. So if you need to speak with them, if you need to have a conversation with them, it would be good to have it in an environment, in a room that is tidy and organized. I had a friend who came by me. He looked up and saw my shelf. And my shelf is organized in what may appear to be a random way, but I know where the books are. But he couldn't take it anymore. He actually went up and started organizing the book from the tall to the smallest. And as he's doing it, he said to me, "Oh, is it all right if I organize your shelf?" So he was sitting in my room and he looked up and he just couldn't take what he probably perceived to be the haphazard way the books are aligned. So he had an emotional need for organization, for things to be organized. Some people like peace and quiet and calm, anything for peace sake. Some people just simply enjoy moments by themselves and with themselves. And while they engage with other people, they are lone rangers. And that's an emotional need. Now, why I'm saying all of this, because it seemed to me that it might seem to you that I'm going a long-winded way. If emotional needs are not being met in your relationship, you are going to have a very unhappy spouse or partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife or husband, and who can be triggered at anything upsets them because their emotional needs, their basic emotional needs are not being met. Their personal emotional needs are not being met. So how do you know when your emotional needs, or even a better question, what are emotional needs and how can I tell what my emotional needs are? First of all, emotional needs are things that make you happy, make you contented, make you feel pleasant. And if those things are not met, you become cranky, you become irritated, you're frustrated, and you just can't function normally. So think of those things. Usually when our emotional needs are met, we don't think about them. When you're hungry and you eat, the hunger goes away. And it doesn't come back until you're hungry again. but you're not necessarily thinking of food when you're satiated, when you're saturated, when you're full. Similarly, when you're thirsty, you need to have drink. When you drink water, your thirst is satisfied and you don't think about it. Similarly, when your emotional needs are met, generally you don't think about them until they are used up and now you feel you need to be regenerated. So that's one way. Another way is to take an evaluation, and I'm going to put a link in the description of a site that helps you to figure out what your emotional needs are. But if you just observe yourself, if you go back historically and you think, what are some of the things that make me feel upset? What are some of the things that make me feel off? And when I get those things, do they make me feel fulfilled, energized, satisfied, happy? And if you begin to think about those and begin to meet each other's emotional needs, you will find that you don't trigger each other as much or as easily. You will find it would be easier to get along with each other. In fact, I dare say that when you were dating, when you were in the first flush of romance, that you naturally met each other's emotional needs. And in fact, I want to go on to say that when your emotional needs are met, even when the other person upsets you, you're not as put off, and sometimes you may even brush it off as, it's nothing. You may feel a certain way, but it doesn't impact you as much. Much like when you're very healthy and a sniffle, an occasional cold don't throw you off. But when your body is run down and you catch something, it just lands you in bed. You can't even function. Right, that's it for this episode. In the next episode, I'll probably start to talk to you about the other reason why people fight, which, hint, hint, it's about you going through a different phase or stage of your relationship. Talk to you soon.